Hello everyone, Kurt Alford here, and welcome back to another episode from Federal Labs. Today we continue on with Fifth Master Dagger, and we're going to be looking at new ways that we may contend with somebody grabbing onto us. Now, it's unclear based on the books of Fury of whether or not this is a continuation or if this is a one play that you go off with this. It's not necessarily Fifth Master Dagger itself, however, as far as the first play is concerned. And remember, for the theory of what we're operating off of, that first thing that we're dealing here is the point in which we're in the point of entry on a person. So it could very well be that way. And again, we'll talk about that in the video. But we're looking at two different ways in which we contend with somebody grabbing onto us. We also get to see how this is, how Fury utilizes the same type of mechanic here to be able to contend against somebody who's got a spear against your throat. And that being the case here, let's get into it. Okay, so for this week, like we said before in the introduction, we're talking about a two-part counter right here. So we're looking at, again, two ways of causing new forms of pain against somebody here when it comes down to someone grabbing on, as well as another part right here, which we already talked about, is if you are being pinned with the lance. And we're going to talk about that here a little bit here as far as that goes, and some of my thoughts about that. The interesting thing about this right here is I don't know if this is something that I start off with coming right to the arm and then moving into something right here, or if this is a continuation. Remember, knife fight, really nasty, really ugly, really sketch, not a fun time for any participant that's out there, okay? So when we start talking about what we do under stress here and what would be this and that, we don't know what's going to happen there. But the more that we know what we can do to somebody in that kind of situation is probably more valuable, especially for the period of time with Fury when you deal with people that are in armor or have other considerations. So the first one we're going to be talking about right here is this one right here, where we see the person coming up, and once again we achieve that grab, but instead of coming up, so he's grabbing into me right here. But instead of me coming right here and coming up into the arm as this, what we see instead here is we see the hands coming off to the side here, going against this right here. Now I want to make sure it's abundantly clear. This is where, again, I don't know. Could this be a continuation strike? Could this be something right here that is the initial strike? Yes and yes. This could be something right off the bat. I come up here, I turn this guy, he doesn't let go, and I come right here and I bring both my hands to break across into him. That's a possibility. It could be he grabs onto me right off the bat, I see it coming, he's a bigger guy, and I take both my hands to break his arms right here. Ultimately, we're utilizing, and I have a habit of doing this, but ultimately we're utilizing that tutta, porta di ferro doubled, like we see in the very beginning, this position here, like that right over left grip. So this could be very much so, once again, he grabs on, and right here is, here across this, nothing happens. Nothing happens. I come across this way, it gives me ground here, so the dagger shot's not in play, but he's wheeling on this, and I have to be, but I've not really broken free of his attack on me. And from there, I'm going to come across, grab the wrist, and come across, utilizing a doubling action with the hands. That's the first one that comes down to this. It could also be, once again, where I take my hands right off the bat. He comes in and grabs on this, and I come off this right here into that position where I've seen that. Again, what are the factors that may lead to this? Is avvisamento. So avvisamento in this right here is a big part that allows for us to see what we have and also to potentially adjust for what we have to do against that person. Those are two major factors with this. If I don't know this is coming up, my first response might be like, oh God, I'm grabbing onto something. Minds latch on, hands latch on. It's very possible those things happen. To a trained person, it might be, my hand comes up here automatically. Why am I, right off the bat, I'm now I have to go to work against something. Okay? So that's the first one we really talked about here. And it's not a very complicated thing, but again, the setup continuation which we're working on here, utilizing that tutta, porta, ferro doubled, is very important. This is very strong. It's using everything together. And off of this, once again, we may find ourselves back into what he was saying from the very first portion of Fifth Master. By coming across here, if I pop here across and I break his grip, well, now I'm right here back into Third Master place where I can come across and throw him over my leg. I have to be very careful because a dagger still plays. So I probably want to bring him down to the ground immediately from there. Okay? So there's a lot off of that right here. So we're not going to be sitting there saying, well, maybe I can reverse this because while I'm sitting there reversing this right here, he's stabbing me. I have an opportunity here to go into the third master kind of concept, going over to the other side, throwing over my leg, pull my own knife, whatever the case may be, and now we're in that type of a situation. Okay. The second one that we see here is in regards to, and it also Fiore states that this is something he would utilize to break against the lance, is again, hand grabs on, and what we're doing from here is my hands come up. So once again, I'm utilizing tutta, porta, ferro doubled, and my hands coming up with this right here. I want these together. I don't want a crossing, because if I pop down here, we'll play the arrow here so it's this way so it's nice and safe. If I have this right here, if I come straight down with this, my hands, maybe I come with this right here, maybe I can come down with that, but the reality is maybe I hit down too hard, maybe he's rigid against this here, maybe my hands split, not as effective. When I go like this instead with my tutta, porta, ferro doubled, I have both my hands on there and I can really just bring all that weight down at once and bring it as hard as I can. Of course, with double crossing on this right here, there's still the possibility that happens, but there's also still the possibility that I also slip because I'm no longer connected. I am not saying that this is not the opportunity right here. I'm saying that right here that these are the reason why I think we're seeing getting our hands up here where we grab onto our wrists. Both of these are very strong, and both of these attack the wrist in very different ways, as well as the elbow. So in the first one right here, so the very first portion of Fifth Master, we're coming like this right here. This allows, by me coming right here and grabbing on this, it's having the wrist dealing with the top portion of the wrist right here, as well as the elbow, which allows this kind of rotation, right? If I'm like this right here, so say it's straight, so if I go like this, it doesn't really necessarily do anything, but by coming up here with this right here, his wrist is now being bent backwards. Once again, the cloth is entrapping him. This is not a comfortable thing here, and because it's grabbed right here, so remember, a mind that is being grabbed right here, this is an instant kind of conflict. So the moment I come across and strike this, he may not let go right off the bat. So as I come across this way, I'm holding on to this. If he lets go, then great. But if he maintains hold of this right here, now I'm doing this right here because his fingers are still trapped inside, okay? Again, I'm not saying that is going to be the foolproof answer right there. I am saying that by grabbing onto someone, which is one of the things I think he kind of cues into when it comes down to Fifth Master, about how this is like how it is not without defense. And I'm probably misquoting it because the book's not right in front of me. But the point being is, I think his point is that by grabbing onto somebody, you are at an advantage, but you are also at great risk, not only because of your elbow, but because of also your fingers, which you're contending with right here. The second one we talk about is if he grabs onto right here, by coming up right here, coming straight down, I can attack his wrist, I can attack his elbow. I probably want to attack his wrist more as much as possible, which is ultimately, once again, putting that jostling back and forth of the wrist as hard as possible here. As soon as the thing that's nice about this one right here specifically is, as soon as I come down, so maybe he sees and he lets go and I strike it, and he starts coming up with a strike. And now I'm right here back into, I'm setting myself up with this, right? So, seek on, down, up, and now right into First Master place. So it's just an opportunity here. So yes, this is the break, but I'm also setting myself up into that ready position of tutta, porta, ferro doubled, and I can respond against his arm, okay? So both those right there really, in many forms and fashions, also break up some of the things that we're dealing with here. Now for this last board right here, unfortunately, I do not have a lance up here. I don't have the space for it, so I can take this from you. So this right here is I've got a bulkato right here that's really good for this right here, but we're going to treat this like it's a spear, so it's looking straight on. So what we're talking about here is the lance being pinned up here, or being pointed on. In this situation, it looks like I'm in a really bad space, absolutely terrible, and I would not disagree with you. But you got to remember, if you're talking about armor, and that's what I think he's talking about right here specifically, then it makes a lot of sense. I would put this out to the viewers out there. I don't know, so please educate me. I have not done enough research on this. I don't believe that lance points were as fine as rondelle daggers. So if he's pushing this into me here, a rondelle dagger goes right through chainmail. It's absolutely terrifying. It's effective, and in some cases, it might even go through plate. Todd's Workshop did a demonstration on this. But if it's a lance that's right here, that's doing this, there's a couple things that come to mind. One is the head of the lance. What is effectively happening here? How bad actually is this? When I say how bad actually is this, it doesn't have something pointy right here going into me. I may have an aventail here that's got a padded coif right here. I've got armor right here. So why might I have the opportunity to do this? A couple things come to mind. Maybe he misses his mark and it goes into the breastplate right here. Sometimes they have those glow bolts ones where they pin up underneath right here. Maybe that's what he's talking about. And because of that, I am able to turn the lance across from here, which allows me access to inside of his couch. We'll get to that later on when we get to the lance stuff right here about how I see fighting against the lance. Other concept right here, which he says is better, is to come right here and to bring it straight down. Why might this one be better? Personally, I think the reason right here is what he's pointing at is it keeps you more point on time with the point on your armor. Whereas this right here, yes, you do have, it's less time on armor, but at the same time too, if he has the point in on me on this, as such, if I'm starting to come up here, if I don't get this, this is very constrained with my arms here. This is very constrained. And if I come here and nothing happens, there's nothing saying that he won't finish the job and step forward and drive this into me. So because I'm right here, if I'm coming across, this is less of a gap space right here to actually strike this lance across. And mind you, this is not a lance, but you get the point where you're getting here. Whereas if I'm coming up here and I'm dropping everything down, I am utilizing much more space, much more weight potential as far as this, because if I'm wearing armor, etc., to be able to clear the device from stabbing me in the throat. Okay? Couple factors that work for that. Like I said, once again, maybe he's walked up and he's just put it right here, and I've stepped back and I'm in position. I've given myself space so I can work in. Or it could be something along the lines of the technology of what the lance actually looks like right here when it comes down to pinning it into the throat. Don't know if it's a very fine point one, and I'm going to ask you, please, dear viewers out there, give me your thoughts on that. I'd be very interested. From what I've seen, they don't look as nearly as pinpoint as like a rondelle dagger, but they are still sharp enough to do horrible things to people. Don't get me wrong. But what I'm getting at is it may not have the initial drive-through that you see, which happens within rondelle daggers. And that's all I'm getting at here. So regardless of this, I'll take this from you. Regardless of what we're talking about here, remember when we're dealing with the fifth master dagger here, these are just two more ways in which we can deal with striking against someone's arm. First one's coming across. If he grabs in here, he's here. He grabs across. If his arm is straight, I push his body into this way. Not a fun day for him. Not fun on the wrist. If I can hear both hands in there, coming across with the body, and I can also come right back. The thing that's nasty about that too that I like is if I come across with this, I also unlock it here, and now I'm right back into that third master shove position. Maybe I get him here. I don't know. Something along those right here. It gives me the opportunity to go cross unlock, right? Basically going from tutta, porta, ferro doubled into posta longa, and then I can work into the porta ferro, all sorts of things right here that I need to as far as abrazari positions. The last one is he grabs on top right here, and from here I come up top here with my hands and I bring it straight down. The thing I like about this right here, is that when I bring this down here, I drop this. If he comes up with this shot, I have my hands here in a position where I can automatically move this and I can work into this. Whether or not that first shot has actually damaged his hand or not is inconsequential. This coming down, his next action might be like, ooh, I'm coming right back there with that nasty shot with the dagger from the Mandrito side. Okay? And because I'm here across, because I'm down with it, I'm now positioned where I can step in, I can step out, whatever. The point being is I have a structure that's strong, which we know this. I can't grab my dagger, as you would tell us in the manual from this position, but what doesn't matter because I'm going from fifth to first master. And that concludes what we have here in regards to the next two looks right here we have regarding the fifth master dagger.
So you can see with the footage right here that, again, we're looking at ways that we can already use other concepts that we have from the posta or guardia that we see within the dagger section. It's unclear to me whether the guy's grabbing his arm here or here. I know that sometimes some people might be very clear to them, but I personally think that this is, again, you want to train to keep a replication portion of like what you're trying to do, which is why for me, I think my theory is that you're going to make you're going to make that tutta, porta, ferro doubled as a means of coming here or coming across. Because if you replicate that there, your mind is not going to, which hand do I grab at this point in time? It's more about being able to replicate immediately off this, take the right action, rather than guess which hand you're supposed to grab. It's just a thought here. So again, if you have any ideas or observations regarding that, please leave a comment below. Love to hear it. This right here, again, like I said, I'm not necessarily 100% studied in how the spear, or in this case, the lanza, how the tips of they looked like in the 14th century. And I would be very interested if anyone else has got that information out there, because one of the big things about these two plays, and I coupled them together because I find them to be continuations of a similar concept, is you're using reinforcement to contend with that hand that's on us. So instead of coming this way, we're utilizing, once again, that concept of getting the person off or attacking the arm that's on you in a way that allows that grab to actually be a detriment to the assailant and not the other way around. Remember, 14th century training manual here. This is not a modern day self-defense course, so there's always something that's a little bit different when it comes down to that. Please keep that in mind. But again, so again, I look at these two plays here. Essentially, they are utilizing a method that allows us to deal with something that's pointed on here. Now, if you're new to the channel, you may not know this, but I also do quite a bit of armor training as well. So we work to validate some of these things also in armor. And actually, the other day we had a situation. There was a sparring session I got to be a part of a few weeks ago, where someone put a spear on me here, but they hit me in the plate, and I just backed away and moved the spear out of the direction. And I remember sitting there after, I was like, "Oh, Fifth Master Dagger." So it was kind of a cool experiment right there, because again, it worked. And mind you, these are not sharp spears, but the point of like being able to keep the pressure on there and wondering like snapping this thing off is that because the thing's been pointed through the aventail, potentially. I don't know how sharp these spears were, or these lanza, if you will. I'm very curious about that, because for a rondel dagger, it makes a lot more sense to me that the rondel is very narrow and pointed because it's closer to you, so you can control that. I would also imagine too that if that was very long, you kind of lose some of the strength of that. The longer that is. And if it's on a spear, well, of course you can get the points in there, and I'm not saying that you can't, but I wonder if there is a concept that we're missing here that they would be historically made for that. But regardless of whether you're using the lance or someone's arm here, these two reinforced positions right here work very well because, again, we're attacking the hand that's on the cloth. And I think that one of the big things that comes down to that is that it's just reinforcing the same mechanic concepts, the same movements, the same everything that Fiore has is doing right from the very get-go in the very beginning. Like I said in the last video, please, if you are practicing this, be safe and be careful, because the reality is if someone's grabbing here, this is very easy to lock a wrist or an elbow. Worse, we don't need to cause it out there. This is a 14th century observation. This is not something we have to, that we have to get right today. Okay, so please be safe with her. A safety consideration that we have done to help us with this, just so we could train the strike, is to make it so that they have a fist to the chest. They're not grabbing, but they have a fist to the chest right here. That way, when we make this motion, we can strike safely against this in a way that allows us to clear them off the shirt. If they grab on here and they're still holding on to this, there's a lot of wrist torque that can happen in that, and that's a big factor. Other thing too is we aim for the forearm. Obviously, aiming for the elbow could be, even with this right here, that still is not a fun space to hit there. So please, safety is a consideration as always in all those practices. Anyway, like I said, a little bit long-winded on that one right there. I apologize, but this is a very interesting series of techniques because it compiles into two different facets, which goes into spear, lanza, as well as in Fifth Master Dagger, and it's ways to be able to clear and shoot on things. Interestingly enough, I want to say it's Danzig has a similar thing with half sorting when it comes down to armor. And that to me is it's interesting that you see once again this kind of clearing off position of what happens with this. Makes me a lot wonder about where's the point in which this happens. Because if you look at some of the swords of the 14th century, they are dangerously sharp, pointed in that regard. So kind of curious about that right there. Nathan Clough from Arms and Armor had a really great video about that. and I got to see the recreation that he did. I love what he does. I love what they do up there as far as their videos and stuff. It's really fantastic to watch. And so take a look at what they've got there too, as far as in their works. But as always, that's going to conclude this video here. If you're new to the channel, please consider liking and subscribing. Love to have you on the channel. Love to have you with us here. Trying to grow this channel as far as I can go, and that is not possible without viewers like you. For my subscribers and my viewers that have been going with me for a while here, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate the support that you give me every week here. I appreciate the comments, and I appreciate the feedback that I get on and offline here if you know me on Facebook and whatnot. I appreciate all of it, and again, it is not possible without people like you. So, with that being the case here, as always, everybody, until I see you again, please stay safe out there, train well, and fight on. I'll see you all soon.